Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lisa Spitzel and today I will show you a little Gradle tutorial. We will make a little calculator app and write some unit tests with Robolectrics. So let's start with a new Android Studio project. So we give it a new name, for example, Calc app. And we change the package name. We can leave this by the default settings and we choose a blank activity. So this is the view and you see a design on the right where I see the changes immediately. Now switch to the command line, go to the directory of our app. And now we built the app with the Gradle wrapper command. This will need some time to finish. And you see that the Gradle recognizes which files need to be built. These are the files with up-to-date. At this point we make a virtual device with the AVD manager. Press new and select a AVD name. Choose a device type. I'll take the Nexus one, I think. And change the target API to level 18. We will need this for a Robolectrics plugin. We shall launch it immediately because it will take some time to start. So now we see that the build was successful. And let's look at our build Gradle. Here's the build script and the repositories for all of our projects. And here we have to change the SDK version to version 18. And we have to get sure that we've installed the SDK 18 packages. We'll check this with the SDK manager. And be sure that these packages are installed. We also have to change the version of Gradle to 7+. And in the Gradle wrapper properties we need the version 1.9. So let's build again. And -Q means that Gradle should be quiet and don't print all the information. And the build succeeded. So let's change our view now. We can skip the text view, we don't need it anymore. And we use a table layout for our items. Set some layout properties. And now we do our first table row. And now we'll make a text view where it's like a label. And you see it takes some time to write all the properties. And that attribute sets the size of the text view, the size of the text on medium. And the text should be number 1, so it's for our first input field, a label that you know what to type into. Now add an edit text. That's an input field. And never forget the layout properties. Now you have the chance to give in an input type, so you only can give in numbers, for example. And give it an ID so you can. And give it an ID so you can access the variable from another content. So you can do this in the design view too. It's a little bit simpler. Just drag and drop the items on the phone. Sometimes it won't work as I wanted to, so change the ID. And you see the code is like the one we wrote before. So it may be simpler to use the designer in this case. Now add 2 buttons. The first one will be the plus button. Call it plus add. And the second one, minus button. So we only need a field where we can print the result. I take a medium text and change the ID. So, and if you now go to the text view, you see that this is all generated and some things will be empty. You can delete it out. You will get some warnings if you don't do that. Build it again. And you see that there were 7 issues found. That's because we didn't use string resources, but that's no problem now. So let's change the main activity. And we will write it in the placeholder fragment so that we can test the functions of the buttons later. First of all, make the root view final. And now we create our buttons. We have to typecast them to button object. And with find by ID, we'll get our button from the view. So let's do the second button. And now we have to set an on-click listener so that we get when the button is pressed and we can react to this event. So let's make a new on-click listener. The override method is generated automatically. And we define 2 ints where we can put in the text from our number fields. So that we get the text from our edit text fields, we need the property getText, and this is a editable object, so we have to cast it to string and then with integer point parse int to an int. And that's quite the same for the second text field. So now we set the text for our result text field. First of all, we have to select our result field, like we did for our other fields and the buttons. Now we set the text, we set result, and then the two integers added together. So that was the add button. Now we have to do quite the same for the minus button. And I will copy that because it's only one minus instead of one plus, so here it is. And build it again. Here you see once again, Gradle only builds the files that are necessary to build, so the files that have been changed. And the build was successful. Now you can run the app with the green symbol. Choose the emulator that we have started at the beginning. And there we go. So this is our app. You see the input fields, the buttons, and we can try it. So let's put in two numbers and click, and you see the result is quite right. Even if we change the numbers. So let's start to create the test. First of all, we add a new folder, a new directory for the Roboelectrics jar. You have to download it from the internet and then copy paste it in your directory. Here you see we need the Roboelectrics version 2.3 snapshot with dependencies. And yeah, paste it in. So now we make a new directory in our sources folder. We call it test. And Gradle expects two directories in a test folder. The one is Java and the second one is a resources directory, so we do them. So we have to change our build Gradle now. First of all, we should apply the plugin Android test. And then we add to the Android parameter source sets, because the default directory of unit tests in Gradle is instrument test. So we say we want that the tests are in our folder, so we say it's in sources test and set the root on it. Now we have to add the dependencies. First of all, the dependency for the JUnit. we take version 4.11. After that we need the RoboElectric dependency with version 2.3 snapshots. And lastly, the fast Android 1.0 point plus. We need the same dependencies for the instrument test compile. So I will copy them that I don't make any spelling mistakes. Now we have to add to our build script an URL. So we say we want this snapshot from this URL. And add some dependencies for Gradle Android test plugin. Here we need the same URL as in our build script. If we now synchronize our Gradle files with our project, it takes a while, and then we see that the Java folder turns green and the resources folder changes its icon. So now Gradle recognizes these items. So we add a new package for our test classes. Now we add the RoboElectric Gradle Test Runner class. You get this class from their website. It overrides the RoboElectric Test Runner, and there are a few config things. And now we do our own test class. Just look if the package is right here. Yeah. So now we have to tell our class with an annotation that it should run with our RoboElectric Runner class we just copied into at the import. And now we need a variable for activity. And we initialize it in our method setup. We had the annotation before, so it's the first thing made in this class. And here we take the RoboElectric function of build activity. And first it had to create the class, to start the class, to resume the class, and lastly to get the class. So we have it in our context. So now let's start with our first test. Add the annotation test. And now we want to check that our variables are initialized correctly. So we use assert that to check if something is null. Add the static import for Android assert that. And now we make our button add. Like in the main activity, we typecast it and we find it by ID. Just import the classes. And this one from our own package. And the same with the other items on our view. And now we check for each of our variables if it's in our context. Just remove the unused import. Now make our second test. We will test the functionality of our add button. And we simply set the text of our number fields. Then we simulate a button click with perform click. And lastly, we check if the text in our result text view is correctly. Now test the functionality of our subtract button. It's quite the same as the add button. Set the text fields. Not the non-click listener. Perform a click. and check if the result is the same as we expect. So now test our unit tests. First we have to build our project again. So no problems were reported, but let's check this. In our project folder, in the build folder, there's a test report, and in this test report an index.html. So you see the package that were tested, the class, and our 3 tests with the duration of each test, and all 3 have passed. So this was my Gradle tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.